deadline, guaranteed contract, $7 million savings, tax line. It's like, now it makes perfect sense. Now, of course, we know why they traded away Noah Vonleh. And like you said, whether it's Kemba or other guys around the league with this deadline, you're going to see more of those guys that are, cut loose or moved or whatever it is. But I guess the most interesting part of it now is that, unlike before, the Celtics do have a free roster spot, which in all likelihood, they're just going to carry. The buyout market is still a couple months away, and I don't necessarily see them making a move. But that being said, there have been the reports about Peyton Pritchard's potential availability, and obviously we know there are a couple of expiring TPEs that the Celtics still have in short order here. As you connect all of these dots, do you see a potential move coming for Boston where there's a guy coming in, not going out?
So immediately no. And I love because, Twitter immediately says, oh, they got an open roster spot. Where's Carmelo Anthony? And, I kind of slap my head and say, yeah. I get it. People love the idea of what could be, but they already got Blake Griffin. And so if you needed your time machine, there you go. He's on the roster.
What it means is that Gallo's about to play.
Yeah. And that's funny too, because now he's running. I actually think that's a good segue because so I've always thought there's two paths to the Celtics sort of adding one more piece to this roster. And either it's using that Gallo disabled player exception to add someone at above what others can bid on the buyout market. So you can, you got like $3 million to play with there, and you can sort of sprinkle a little bit more than other teams are going to be willing to offer or have the ability to offer at mostly a minimum deal, unless someone's got like a chunk of the mid-level left, which no contender probably does. So you can probably lure someone there, or the bigger, like if you want to make a bigger splash, the one path is trading Danilo Gallinari in his mid-level or mid-level money to go acquire something a little bit more sexy. And you could there's also like you could do it where you're trading out Gallo and bringing back like a lot of people obsess about these traded player exceptions. I just don't see them using them, in part because if you're trying to save $7 million by moving Noah Vonleh, you're probably not going to add another $6 million in salary without sending something out. And maybe Gallo's part of that or whatever. So it'll be very interesting to me what they do. The biggest thing is, like, last night the bench was really good against Dallas. Does that give you any more confidence that they don't need to make a move, or do you still need one more piece? And I don't know if I have a firm reaction to that yet. Like, I feel like when healthy, the Celtics, it would be very hard for someone to come in here and be kind of hammer out a role. And yet, if Hauser continues to struggle, if there's some blips on the radar with other bench pieces, it's something you have to consider. So it's good to have the roster flexibility now to potentially maneuver. And I don't think it was intentional. Like, they were January 10th was looming, and we'll see if Justin Jackson survives it. If they feel like they need another open roster spot, which would probably be overkill, but they just from the money standpoint, if you could save $7 more million, like, I don't know. So but the bigger point here is Brad has some flexibility, and it's just a little reminder for all those bench guys, like, hey, nothing's set in stone here. They can potentially still explore what's out there.
Yeah, the Hauser spot is the only spot that really you could possibly upgrade. They're not trading Pritchard till the offseason. They're going to have a problem with guards, I think, come the offseason between, Pritchard, J.D. Davison. They have Begaron, everybody's favorite international prospect right now. He's doing his thing. Yamadar at some point, maybe. They have. I forgot about Yam.
Love the
Yamadar's out there. He's out there. So there's Pritchard's not going anywhere because between Malcolm and Smart. I'm not trying to say Smart's injury prone, but Smart does throw his body around a lot, and it just you never know. And Pritchard's a valuable guy. He knows their system come in. He can run it. He's comfortable. Like that's very valuable to have. Boston has an insanely deep guard rotation, and Pritchard's going to be a part of that, I think, for the season. But it's really just about the Hauser minutes. And if Hauser starts shooting better again, then we don't have to talk about really anything, because that's great. I mean, you go back to the beginning of the season, the best lineups Boston had Hauser on the floor. So I know that's small sample size theater, but he can make a huge impact when he's shooting the ball well. He's just not shooting the ball well right now. And hopefully at some point he can get back into some good rhythm here. But that's the only spot you can really upgrade. Using Gallo's salary is very interesting. But
From a human, and this is what I always want to ask people. Like, Evan, from a human perspective, you bring this guy in, like he's invested in Boston. He's been on like a bunch of road trips. Yeah, and like
always looks good on the sideline too. Dresses up very well.
The family grew up rooting for Larry Bird, for Christ's sake.
Evan, has he been to your suit shop to get some of those fresh cuts?
If I could dress Gallo, that would be a real big thing for me. That'd be like an accomplishment.
I would
probably die.
Plenty.
Yeah, it'd be a real big accomplishment for me. But again, as the resident Italian on that team, I'm very attached to Gallo. I love it.
So it's fascinating to me. And Kaufman, you can chime in too, like as I take over your podcast. But like I am worried. Like I do think Brad has maybe a little bit more, not sentimentality, but like he has a little bit more human emotion than maybe most GMs do in that spot. So does he have to be sort of cutthroat and be like, we need one more piece? And Gallo's the only really tradable contract, and it doesn't disrupt the immediate chemistry. Do you pull the trigger on that deal if there's something that materializes, or do you look at this and say, we invested in this guy. He's out here Instagramming every friggin' run he does up and down the court, and like does that change the calculus at all? Because I think I probably lean more towards the former than the latter. I think like you just got to be, hey, goal here is to win a championship. If there's the right deal out there, you make the move. And I think Brad, understands that at the end of the day. But it's just a weird situation when you're somewhat invested in the guy.
So I love that you brought this up because, as Evan knows, our text chain in and around the Celtics, our buddy Landman, who comes on from time to time, he's part of our fantasy league. He has been like, if he's out there listening to this show, and he's basically the Steve Carell office meme where he goes, "Thank you," because he has been talking for months about trading away Danilo Gallinari. You've got this salary, get rid of it. Not for the sake of doing it, but like this is a trade chip, as you're talking about. And, I will always respond with the human element. And, how does Brad feel about everything you just outlined? And, one thing we were kind of talking about just a couple days ago was, someone, I don't remember who it was, but somebody had suggested like it's, that whole conversation we had around when IT was traded with the knee and the supposed reaction of Anthony Davis's father when the C's wanted to, in theory, bring him in. Like, what is it? Does Boston turn into a place that players don't want to go because of a lack of human emotion? Guy hasn't played a game for you yet, tears his ACL in the offseason. All of a sudden you move him before he even wears the uniform. How does that make you look? And the way that I respond to that is I don't think it makes a big difference, because if the Celtics, the IT thing was way worse. I mean, that guy gave up everything for you, not intentionally, but he did. He gave up everything for you, and you survived that just fine in terms of still being, an attractive destination and landing spot. So Danilo Gallinari is not going to be a ripple on that river. So I don't worry about that type of thing at all. But in terms of like you're talking about Brad looking at it, just him personally and saying, man, like I'd really like to see this. Like he's and I am certainly a sucker for the, I know it may have sounded like a joke earlier, but I am definitely a sucker for the, man, he grew up rooting for Larry Bird and his dad's favorite team was the Celtics. And like, let's see him. I want to see him in the uniform. But there's no underestimating the fact that Hauser stepped into that role, has arguably done it better at a significantly reduced rate. And
I enjoyed Evan's reaction to that positive.
He did it better for a month.
Well, I mean, look, but I don't think all of a sudden like the whole Hauser-Matic thing is dead. Like Sam Hauser is going to be fine. I do believe that. So
just rookie year, basically. So
exactly,
I think we're being too hard on the guy.
Right. So the whole like, long-winded way of putting it, I guess, is, as you said, Chris, I think if the right deal were on the table, Brad would have to react. He'd have to do it. But I do not think that he is soliciting it. I don't think that when he is looking around at upgrades for this team, he is actively saying, where can we use the Gallo contract to upgrade? So maybe I'm wrong about that.
Now I'm going to go fully cutthroat. And, after I talked about sentimentality, if the dude wanted to play for the Celtics so badly, then don't play in FIBA and be healthy. So,
or come 3 years ago when they pursued you.
Right. And so ultimately, if Brad thinks there's a move out there to better this team, I hope that sentimentality does not factor too heavily into it.
I don't really think it will be. He traded Kemba. Like, I mean,
he did.
That and it's not the same thing.
And his first move, like his first, like sort of, hey, I'm here. And like, look, when Brad has been able to make the team better, and especially if it comes at the perk of getting someone that's like tied up for another 3-4 years, you know, like, let's face it, Gallinari is not going to help this team in a championship pursuit this year, aside from his very sharp sideline attire. So if you can find someone that can, you got to do it.
Well, and the
devil's question is, where does that come from, though?
Even if he were fully healthy, might not help you in a championship pursuit, because he's, you know, when the rotation tightens, he probably wouldn't have been part of it anyway.
Yeah.
It depends. Like, again, I would love if there was an alternate universe where we could see what Gallo would have brought. There would have been nice where he hit like 8 3-pointers, and we would have been like, oh my God, what a signing. But yeah, Evan brings up a good point too. Like, what's the move? And so I don't know. Like, it's going to come down to, I think in the next month we'll see a lot of teams start kind of waving that flag, saying we're going for Wembanyama, and like, so all of a sudden, is there pieces out there that you maybe didn't expect to be available? Teams trying to trim payroll fat. Like, I don't know. That's the hard part that I haven't connected yet. Like, who are the obvious options out there? Maybe I just need to start doing my homework better. And what exactly do you need? You know, is it, I've said, like, I think the biggest thing the Celtics need is another defensive minded wing who you would trust in a playoff situation, because
Jay Crowder up to.
I can't make the money work on that one. Plus the dude now has not played for 3 months, and which is a weird situation. But there's someone out there. There's somebody that let's check the Spurs roster, because that's all Brad does is trade with Popovich.
I was going to mention Devin Vassell, but I was going to ask how many first round picks would it take to get Devin Vassell on this team, because that would be it.
So let's add a 2029 pick swap, a 2000, you know, like whatever it's got to take to get Pop to bite on that.
Because that's, you know, I thought I wanted Keldon Johnson for a little bit, because the Spurs were having a little bit of a mini fire sale there with DeJounte Murray, and I was like, I would be calling out Keldon Johnson every single day.
So true.
Because that guy, I actually think I liked it better than DeJounte Murray, to be frankly honest with you. I love Keldon Johnson, a great player. But
don't forget, everyone got excited about the guy who exposed himself to the therapist too. That was another one.
Well, Chris is right, though. It's about the teams that are at the bottom of the pile who are looking to cut salary because they're trying to get Wembanyama, and they're trying to get, you know, guys that mean stuff. Like Detroit's another team. You know, Bogdanovich is going to get traded. It's just a matter of when.
Saddiq Bey, correcting all that went wrong.
But Saddiq Bey, like, has games where you want to pull your hair out because he can't hit shots. But, you know, he's a Villanova guy, and I love guys that play for Jay Wright. That's like one of my big draft things is like, just draft guys that played for Jay Wright because they know how to play.
If only you'd had a chance at him.
I know.
Yeah. If only.
I know. But it's a team like that, and we don't know exactly who all those players are going to be yet. But, you know, you have some idea. Like the Rockets are there, Detroit's there. You're going to have San Antonio there. Charlotte eventually is going to. I think they're there.
That's the fun wild card, man.
Yeah, Charlotte's just a dumpster fire. So like there's more teams to add to that, but they're just not. They haven't made themselves available yet. That's where. But that's the question is, you know, do you trade Gallo to get a better piece right now? And if that trade's available, I bet Brad does it. But I just don't know if that's ever going to come to fruition or not. Again, it takes two to tango, as we found out with Danny so many times.
I am curious, Chris, and you may not know right now because, you know, the league, like some of this stuff needs to play out, obviously, over the next, I don't know, month or two as we get closer to the trade deadline and buyout market and all of that. But sort of who may spring available that is also a perfect fit for this team in terms of what their needs are, fits right financially, all of that, whether it's using Gallo or not, you know, however that shakes out, obviously, in terms of the money. But a guy that actually will become available that makes sense for this team. Because as we know, we've talked about it on this show in the past, especially relating to the buyout market, but even midseason trades, so few times, you know, so many shows like this spend so much time talking about who do you want? Who do you need? Who can become available? Who's a good fit? And more often than not, even if some of those deals are made, they're not difference-making deals. They're not deals that carry you to a championship. So it does make me wonder, I don't know if there will be a guy this year or multiple guys this year that genuinely make sense, that actually do provide a difference. And obviously we won't know till we know.
Yeah, and I think what I do, and I haven't done this exercise yet, but I'll go to Spot Rack or whatever, one of those salary sites, and sort by dudes that make $6 million or less, and look for guys that fit your prototype, that are wings, like high level defenders who maybe haven't tapped into their full offensive potential, or vice versa, whatever the case may be. I think because of Hauser, you feel pretty comfortable that if he ever figures out how to be a consistent shooter, like he's going to be a rotation piece. Like I probably wouldn't seek offense first. I'd be looking for defense. And maybe that's a vet. But the bigger story is very rarely do trade deadline or buyout moves swing the entire the complexion of the postseason. I mean, everyone goes back and says like, oh, PJ Brown, Sam Cassell, Celtics, that
that's
helped.
That's the last time.
That's
and that's literally that's the point. 15 years ago, it's been an eternity since someone found someone off the scrap heap that has really impacted the playoffs. And so it's nice to think about and all that. But I guess if I'm Brad Stevens, I'm a lot more concerned about, okay, how do we not have our entire bench slump for a month? And how do we make the Jays even better and get Jason Tatum to start actually making 3-point shots at something closer to his career level than the 34% he's shooting now. And so for us, it's fun to obsess about, and I'm sure I'll get a lot of cheap clicks off of the people that we throw out there. So